Okay, so thank you for being here today. Could you please start by introducing yourself?
I am Magdelena Harding, Specialist Financial Advisor for Wesleyan Financial Services, specialising in giving advice to dentists and the dental professions.
It's currently National Pension Awareness Week. Why is there such an emphasis on understanding pensions, and why do you think that's so important for dentists?
First of all, I think pensions are the magic key to great financial planning and retirement. So with the national initiative, it's all about aiming to improve the financial outcomes of those saving for their retirement. Long-term financial plans are easily left for another day, particularly when dentists are so busy in the practice. You've got all these other things you always think is more important. But the earlier you start planning for your retirement, the less you actually need to personally contribute to reach your personal goal. I always say it's much cheaper to start earlier, but just start planning early is vital with regards to your financial security in the future.
So what would you say are the benefits of having a pension?
It's an excellent way for dentists to save for the longer term. It is incredibly tax efficient, so not just from an income tax basis or saving on corporation tax, but potentially even for inheritance tax. So great tax savings on that, and some great allowances to kind of like put it through the business potentially, or just saving personally as well. And pensions as well as with investments, the longer you are in the market, the better as well. So saving for that longer term, being longer in the market is a great benefit on savings as well.
There have also been a lot of changes this year in relation to pensions. What do you think those mean for dentists' retirement plans?
There has been some great news with that. So Jeremy Hunt's made some changes within his spring budget, and one of the first ones were their personal annual allowance. Now, you used to be able to just put in £40,000 a year into your pension. This has been increased to 60,000, which is fantastic because it increased the tax-free savings you can make. It's also great news for those relying on the NHS pension, but also need to kind of like do some extra personal pension because of your personal setup if you are NHS or private practice. So definitely gives you a lot more wiggle room, and especially for those who was just solely in the NHS and that was very close to breaching this limit. The plans also were revealed with regards to the lifetime allowance. So this won't now apply for this tax year, and it will also be removed completely from the 6th of April 2024. So again, great news for those looking to boost their long-term savings, as there are more opportunities and less tax implications. However, while the lifetime allowance has been removed, there is still a tax-free lump sum limit, which may affect how you access your pension. So seeking specialist advice here might be really beneficial for yourself. There's also been a lot of changes with regards to the NHS pension scheme this year, especially around partial retirement. So this has been all with the aim of making the process more flexible for healthcare professions. However, the temporary suspension of abatement has ended. And what does that mean? It's basically the process in the NHS pension scheme that restrict your pension payment if you return to work. So meaning that this now could apply. But there are many more changes that I can go into. But because we have the 1995 scheme, we've got the 2008 scheme, we've got the 2015 scheme, I would highly recommend it is speak to a specialist on a one-to-one basis, because it would all be varying differently individually, and reviewing it can kind of like have a look at what have I got and how is it going to impact me.
Okay, and are there any particular pitfalls with pensions that dentists need to be aware of?
They are. Our dentists are very fortunate to have various income streams, but those various retirement income streams can make it a little bit more complex and a little bit harder to understand and kind of like put it in today's terms, so to speak. So one of the questions would be, for instance, are you solely relying on NHS pension? Do you also have a personal pension? Have you got any other assets or savings or investments that potentially could help towards your retirement or your pension funds? Will you be looking at selling your practice, and the proceeds of the sale of the practice, is that part of your retirement plan? And one of the key things is kind of like always is just making sure that we are looking at what pots to use almost first as well with regards to gaps and things like that. But it's also another big pitfall is that we see a lot of NHS practices being converted into private practices. And what I find is that there's so much going on that potentially some of the dentists are forgetting to think about replacing the NHS pension scheme. So it's really important to kind of like make sure that you don't fall into that pitfall to say actually forget about it or not reviewing it. So we need to make sure that we review this to make sure that you continue putting money into a pension, therefore replacing your NHS pension. It's important to understand that you won't lose your NHS pension that you have already accrued, but you will no longer be able to kind of like add additional amount to it. Or if you still have NHS, you may not be able to contribute as much to it. Therefore, we need to fill these gaps in to make sure that you are staying on track for your retirement. As I mentioned right in the beginning, there is a cost to delaying your retirement plan. So not just in how much you've got to contribute on a monthly basis, but also the time in the market. So by putting these things off, it effectively kind of like gives you less time in the market to benefit from growth, but also potentially tax savings, but also you will have to end up putting a lot more in on a monthly basis to kind of like meet your retirement plans and the amount that you would need to achieve your goals and objectives. If you also are relying on the NHS pension, if you do decide to kind of like retire earlier, there will be an accrual reduction in your retirement income. So again, it's kind of like reviewing how do we fill that gap? Is it the fact that we kind of like leave that pension till full retirement age and you get the full amount, but then how do you fill the gap in between? Or do you take the lower amount, but then there's a gap potentially with how much you need? So again, it's looking at where's the best place to take that money to fill that gap. And I just think one of the key things is I cannot stress this enough, is to review your retirement planning and your provisions on a regular basis. Things change, your circumstances change. And it's so important to just have a quick check. It doesn't have to be hours on end. Make an appointment, see someone and actually just review it to make sure everything is still right for you, making sure that you have taken advantage of any tax efficiency or legislation changes that's happened. And remember, I'm a firm believer to think that pensions is the key to a great, successful financial plan.
Okay, great. Thank you so much again for your advice.
Thank you.